Are the Pistons better off now because they had to look at what life was without Cade? Like we talked all year, they were one of the healthiest teams in basketball. They hadn't had to deal with a lot of bad stuff. They played without Beef Stew and without Cade for an extended period. JB Bickerstaff, to me, that makes you a better coach. Does this make them more dangerous? Because I believe it does. And then the second part is kind of what's the ceiling? Like I have said, the ceiling for the team is the NBA Finals. Like I think they can make the finals. First of all, they'll go belt to ass on the Knicks. They're in the Knicks' heads. I also have repeatedly said, I think there is a softness to the Celtics. Trust me, they're my team. There's a softness there. I wonder if your bully ball would really F with them. Cleveland's the one that scares me a bit, but there's no guarantee you even see him. I wanted to ask these two questions because, look, Rico, in another week, basically, it's game on. I think it's next Saturday or Sunday, the playoffs start. So I wanted your take, and I want to hear from the people.
I've raised my expectations for this Pistons team because when you had every opportunity to stumble, you actually didn't. You got better. I mean, Jalen Duren actually, to me, he's earned whatever money they're going to pay him because he stepped up and said, no, this is going to be my team. And he played like a guy that said, this is my team now. I'm the captain. Cade is gone. You're going to listen to me. A guy like Dennis Jenkins went from being a cute story to he may be a reason why this team actually plays well in the playoffs. I mean, you should make the NBA Finals.
Should. I'm not going there. I'm willing to say they can do it. I should.
All right, interesting question. Are the Pistons better now that they had to play without Cade Cunningham? I think, yeah. Or maybe, I'm going to say this. I think they're better because guys got to find a rhythm. I think that's simply guys got to find a rhythm. Herter got to find his footing. You know what I'm saying? LeVert, we got to see that he got to be on the ball. He more than just a scorer, but when he on that ball, he's more effective. So you kind of got a situation where you figure guys' roles. Guys was able to get a rhythm, and now you don't have to put so much responsibility on Cade, right? Just as you got Paul Reed, who had to play some extended minutes, and they just like, hey, you kind of got to find a role for him. So, what you seen was Cade injury actually probably locked up Coach of the Year for JB Bickerstaff, but also it allowed for everybody to show what they can do. Dennis Jenkins was able to find his magic. People say, he got the money. Cool. If we gonna deal with slumps, Dennis Jenkins' slump came at a great time. Yeah, it just so happened to come when he got money. But when it came down to really needing him and reinvigorating him or getting him out of that slump, he stepped up. He stepped up in a major way because a lot of those teams was breathing down the Pistons' neck they really wanted to hawk the Pistons for the number one seed. They wanted to hawk them for that number one seed. That's what it was. So you can't say those games weren't meaningful, and they very much were. So now you get guys fresh. Duran missed some games because of the suspension. He got fresh and improved it down the stretch. Paul Reed is phenomenal. I think he can get paid somewhere pretty soon. He's a valuable piece. Isaiah Stewart is getting fresh and healthy. He had the suspension, and on top of the suspension, he had the this calf strain. But now last year he couldn't play in the playoffs. So hey, that's cool. And then the craziest thing is like you have to depend on Dennis Jenkins to play the Schroeder role this year, or you're going to have to really depend on a collective effort. Now, it's a little bit different from last year because, and I don't want to regurgitate or sound redundant from other videos, but it's a little bit different from last year because Tobias had a couple good games in that Knicks series. Asar had a couple good offensive games in that Knicks series. And on top of that, Malik didn't play well. Tim had a good game or two. So it kind of was a collective effort, but you hoping that Duncan Robinson can be the shooter that he's been down, of lately in the play. And he has some playoff experience, I believe. He has some playoff experiences, I believe. Hold on one second. Yeah, he has some playoffs experience, I believe. They ain't won a championship with him. I mean, who else do we have? Cares have already got some playoff experience. Herder, I believe. So they got to, let's see if all these guys can contribute and step up in the right way. So that's what I'm interested to see. Can these guys step up in the right way and really fill the void that maybe wasn't filled by Malik Beasley, or can they at least do what Schroeder did last year? So it's gonna be interesting. But I believe they did actually get better. I believe that they did get better without Cade. I think people was able to get into a rhythm. I think people was able to find their footing. So yeah, to me, it's gonna be interesting, man. And I think like Valenti say, maybe the ceiling is the finals. And if that can be the case, shout out to them. When Detroit is good, it's just summers in Detroit is a little bit different when the Pistons are good. I remember when they won in 2004. I mean, Detroit was a big block party for that last game. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember it. People was outside. They was rating projectors on the side of their houses. It was, man, dude, that was like one of my last lit summers, man. Like, especially as a teenager, that summer was mad lit. It was a movie in Detroit when they won it. So it's always good to see the Pistons do, good and positive things and be good. But, we're a long way away from the finals. It's like, okay, we got to get out the first round. We got to get a win at Little Caesars Arena. I think people don't even realize that they haven't won a playoff game at Little Caesars Arena. And outside of that, winning a series, getting out the first round, and just, now they got some experience. There's some seasoning there. From last year, they got some seasoning in the game. So, I look forward to it. But I definitely think they found the rhythm. Guys have got fresh, and now, you look for Duren to take that next step. You look for, Dennis Jenkins to do what Schroeder did. And you looking for, Tobias to, build on what he did last year, at least do what he did last year. Asar to be aggressive offensively, at least, give us the couple games. But really, it's like Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, Kevin Herter, Isaiah Stewart. Now we need those guys to come into this playoffs, and where we didn't have Stewart at last year, where Malik Beasley kind of fell a little bit short last year at, we need these guys to pick it up. So I think they will. But, they're in a good position. A lot of people in the local media was questioning the validity. They're playing basketball right now. Don't nobody care in the beginning of the season. Players don't care in the beginning of the season. Oh, these games are meaningless. And then, they went through that skid. A lot of national media, jumped off the bandwagon. But I was saying, you knew this was coming. It's just a matter of fact when the skid was coming. OKC had they skid in like December, January. I think January-ish. The Knicks lost a bunch of games. They had they skid in January, where they lost like 10 straight games. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure Boston had a skid. Spurs had a skid. So we know what it is. We know skids come and go. We know they come and go. So I don't really think that's a true shocker, man. So, and they was able to recover, and when Cade went down, I was like, it's gonna fall apart, and they got stronger. So, like I said, man, sometimes the conventional thought ain't always conventional thought. And, as they got injured, they had the skid, or they rested their top guys versus Brooklyn, or some of them, they lost a bunch in a row, struggle versus Cleveland. Now you having guys come back, getting their legs rested, getting loose, finding a rhythm. And now, it's time for guys to step in there. You got a lot of pit bulls on the ball defensively. You getting Isaiah Stewart, who good on and off the ball. You got Duren, who quite wasn't ready last year in the playoffs. So it's gonna be an interesting look. And they kind of feel like they're playing with house money too. Yeah, they feel like they're playing with house money. That we got a young core. And for Jalen Duren, it's basically to put the cherry on top of a $200+ million contract. And, you know what I'm saying? That's all he really trying to do. And if he, do that, and stay out of trouble, he'd be all right. He'd be all right. So yeah, they got something to prove. And then, you know, they was like, oh, this the fourth best team in the East. It's the fourth best team in the East. And it's like, wow. You know, people say, oh, it's experience. I mean, yeah, you know, you can say it's experience. Sometimes experience ain't, you know, what you think it is. Sometimes experience can be, you know, lazy or get tired legs. Going through all those battles and things that you go through. You can get tired, you know, you might be wore out. But, you know, they played well in the playoffs last year, exception of a couple people, but kind of really missed Dennis Schroeder, though, man. Schroeder was big. Schroeder was in a perfect place to be a Detroit Piston, to be honest. He was in a perfect place, and I ain't mad at him. You got to get your money. But he was in a perfect place with the Detroit Pistons, man. He was a perfect Piston, bro. You know? He really shined in the play. And you think about it, the Lakers, you know, they can use a guy like that, you know, a guy that can close games out like Dennis Schroeder was closing games out for us, you know. When you play next to two guys like a LeBron and a Luka, and I know him and Luka got into it, rightfully so, you a man. There's certain things you can't let niggas get away from when you a man. But, yeah, you know, his ability to close, you know, as that next to third or fourth option, you don't get that a lot. So, you know, thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the link in the description. Say find me everywhere. It's the Linktree, X, Facebook, Click, wherever. Appreciate the love, support. Peace.